Hello and welcome. You're watching me, Sanket Upadhyay, on the Federal. The show is called AI with Sanket. This is the AI of news because news in India today requires not artificial but analytical intelligence. The buzzword is the E word, ethanol. There is a lot of content out there about whether ethanol is good or bad for your car. The only trick over here is number one, to not panic, and number two, to listen to experts. And number three, listen to what the country is saying. When it comes to cars, trust me, Indians know what they're buying. And they know when there is a mileage drop, because this is a country of kitna mileage deti hai. So when the mileage drops, this country will know, because that is how every penny matters. A survey has been done. It's a one of a kind survey mapping the response of Indians as far as ethanol is concerned. What does India have to say about E20? I have with me Mr. Sachin Taparia. Thank you very much for joining us. Sachin he heads LocalCircles, which keeps conducting polls all through the year, snap polls, follow-up polls, and they're all of great importance and significance to you, the viewer, to the last man standing. And this is another tranche of his ethanol survey. Thank you very much, Sachin, for giving us time.
It's a pleasure to be here, Sanket. Thank you for having me.
Let's start by straight away showing graphic number one from your latest ethanol survey. We'll put it on the screen and then you can explain the context. Fuel efficiency drop, is that the core issue? Real world mileage reduction in pre-2023 vehicles due to E20. Remember, pre-2023, petrol cars and petrol vehicles were not E20 compliant. They were E10 compliant. So now that the standard fuel available is E20, is it leading to a fuel efficiency drop? The fundamental question. 13% say they're unclear. 13% say that they don't face any impact, lucky 13. 3% say that they experienced about 2 to 5% mileage drop, which is what the government is also saying. 5% experienced a 5 to 10% drop. 20% experienced a drop of 10 to 15%. 23% of India experienced a drop of 15 to 20%, and 23% experienced a drop of over 20%. Sachin, what comes to your mind when you look at these figures? And also do keep in mind to tell the viewers that you periodically do the ethanol survey. So has there been a progression, or have things gotten better? How would you like to start?
Absolutely, Sanket. So this is the third E20 impact survey that LocalCircles has done. We had done one in September of last year when it was just 4 months into the program becoming mandatory across India. Then we did another one in May. And because of so much interest and so many complaints that LocalCircles received in the last 30 days, we basically decided to do it again, rather quickly, because we were feeling that there is more awareness and there is likely going to be change, in the numbers. And hence we did it again at the end of June. And the numbers have steadily been rising. So if you look at the mileage drop number, which was, sub 20%, when I say mileage drop, I'm looking at, at least a 10% mileage drop. And this number was sub 20% in September last year. It rose, to about 45% in the May survey. And in the June survey, the number was at a staggering 66%. And the way, if we look at some of these numbers and patterns and everything we do at LocalCircles, there is a high likelihood that by the end of July, this number will be at 80%, which means, of every 100 pre-2023 car owners that you would talk to, today, 66% of them are saying they are seeing a mileage drop of over 10%. So we definitely have a problem at hand that the government should not be ignoring at this point. It should be paying attention to, and it should be looking at everything, whether it is the way the fuel is being mixed, with petrol, with ethanol, what petrol pumps are doing. I think everything should be under scrutiny to make sure that what is reaching the end consumer is something which leads to a maximum of 1 to 5% mileage drop, and not 15 and 20%, because that's a significant mileage drop for a lot of people, and it adds to their hits their bottom line, because it's the monthly household budget. If you travel, let's say, 50 kilometers a week, right, and you end up spending, or you plan for spending, let's say 15,000 or 20,000 on your commute, and that bill becomes 25 or 30,000, it is pinching people. So I think it needs urgent attention the way it stands right now.
Okay, let's move to the next slide. This is the rapid month-on-month deterioration. You will see that presentation. Now, before you explain this, Sachin, I wanted to ask you, the one correct way of establishing this is by interviewing the same set of people. So since you say that this is the third such survey which Local Circles has conducted, are you saying that the same people who reported a greater than 10% mileage drop has increased to 66%? Is the pool of people the same? What was the sample size?
Exactly, but there is a lot of commonality, Sanket. So we look at both the data points. So about 60% of the pool is same, but 40% is new individuals, basically, who participated in this month's survey, who may have not participated in previous surveys. So what is happening is the awareness, essentially, of this particular issue is increasing. A lot of people that we interviewed back in September of last year, they were not paying any attention to this subject because it wasn't significant enough. There wasn't enough awareness about it. People don't track their mileage, a lot of them at least, on a very, very regular basis, because they assume that their car is going to run, 10 kilometers per liter or 20 kilometers per liter, whatever that number is. But as awareness of this particular issue has increased, more and more people have started tracking and paying attention, and that is leading to a rise in numbers. But what we look at is, statistically, if we look at that sample which has got enough participants to that particular question from different parts of the country, from different demographics, then how is that sample looking as a single unit? So what we are seeing is a rise in those people who rise in numbers for those who participated in the survey in May. So that's about 60% of the participants, and the 40% that are new, who weren't there earlier, they are also saying that there is an issue. So I think it's both these audiences.
Okay, and what you see here in June 2026 is that 66% of the owners are now reporting a greater than 10% mileage drop. Now, in real world, there is a very easy way of monitoring this. Most modern cars calculate your mileage, right? So if you press buttons on your dashboard, you would see, especially in Suzuki cars, you would see that it will say that your average is 14.8 or 14.6. Now, it is also true that your car mileage is a function of a number of things. You get stuck too much in a traffic jam, the average will go down. You press the gas pedal too hard, your average will go down. You go for a highway spin, your average will go up. But I'm assuming, Sachin, that these are consistent people who are doing an apples to apple comparison of their mileage in their car, which means that considering that their driving pattern was the same in May and it remained the same in June, these are the results. Am I correct?
Absolutely, 100%, Sanket. I mean, traffic problems, waterlogging problems, for example, in Delhi and CR. I mean, these have always been there. So people know, when there is an issue, essentially. And therefore, that's the beauty of doing a timeline on any survey that we do, where you go back to people over a period of time. So if it was a one-off, right, and those one-offs are very, very easy to catch. So what we do is, when we ask them these questions, we say that, do you attribute this kind of mileage drop to the E20 fuel? Right. So that's a very specific question in there. And that's what they are attributing it to. And that's when we are saying that, look, this is a concern out there. We need to attend to this concern as a nation. And that number is rising. So therefore, I think, of course, earlier people were not paying as much attention in the first 6 to 9 months of E20 going mandatory, but now they are paying that attention to these numbers, and hence they are coming back and reporting that, look, I have a problem.
Yeah, let's move on to the next presentation. This is part of the Local Circles survey. This is about vehicle damage and repair needs. You see, mileage drop is something that even the government admits. They say that yes, there'll be a mileage drop, but their figure is about 2 to 3%, 2 to 5%, not greater than 10% or 20%. But vehicle damage and repair needs is something which the government has outrightly rejected. From Minister Nitin Gadkari to the rest in the government, all of them have said, show me one such car. So what does India say? I think this is a slide which perhaps the minister might want to see. Unusual wear and tear and repair needs reported by owners. 7% say they don't say anything. 38%, why don't we just go full frame with this graphic so that viewers can see this properly. 38%, nothing unusual. 10%, slight increase. 21% experienced a moderate increase, and 24% experienced a major increase in wear and tear and repairs. So if you combine 24 and 21, I think that would be an ideal situation, from moderate increase in wear and tear to greater increase, perhaps in older cars. So that figure is sizable. Sachin, how do you read this finding?
So, I think what has happened here, Sanket, is, we've all been seeing some of these viral videos on social media, right? There are two aspects to it. I think there are some people out there who are exaggerating that, look, there are engine failures that are happening, and there is, major fuel pump failures that are happening as a result of E20. I think some of those may be exaggerated. But at the same time, what we are seeing in qualitative feedback from people is that, there are corrosion issues, whether it is the fuel tank or the injector. And I'm, no automobile expert by any means, but there are corrosion issues. There are issues of degradation of, rubber parts and plastic parts, and melting of some of those parts like gaskets and different parts that are there in the fuel system. And then they're also, basically reporting that they've had, component failures also within the fuel system. So I think it's these issues which basically, you go to the mechanic, you've been going, every 3 to 6 months or whatever for basic repairs. And even the next time you go, they say that, look, you need a filter change, right? And that's an additional cost. So I think this is what we are looking at, that this wear and tear and this maintenance cost, which, they again budget for a certain amount every year or every month, right? That is going up is because that mechanic bill is higher than what it used to be in the past. And again, in our survey, we have asked them, do you attribute it to E20? And these are the people who are saying that, yes, we attribute it to E20. So I think, again, it's not, you're not seeing major failures. And I think it is wrong for anyone to expect major failures and say that, look, no engines are breaking or no fuel pumps are breaking. But there is a wear and tear issues where these costs are going up essentially, which means that, in the medium to long term, right? If earlier, the overall cost of owning that vehicle from a wear and tear and a maintenance standpoint, let's say was 30% of the price of the vehicle that you originally invested in, right? That number might go up over a period of time, and the life of that vehicle or some of the major assemblies and components in there could reduce because of this fuel. So at least that's what we are reading at this point of time. We have not seen any complaints about, engine went bust or fuel pump went bust, but it's the maintenance and the wear and tear cost that people are reporting is increasing. Some have had minor, issues. A decent bit, which as you presented in the survey, 24% are saying that, look, there is significant increase in these costs. So if it was, 1,000 rupees previously, if that becomes 2,000, that's a significant increase for a lot of people.
Absolutely. I think certain things need to be very clearly said out here. Number one, people who are driving their vehicles are not all drivers are automobile experts. They may be good drivers, but to qualify as an automobile expert, neither Sachin nor Sanket Upadhyay can say that we know everything about injectors and ethanol and its. So for people to conclusively link ethanol as a reason for their wear and tear and repairs perhaps may not be a very correct representation. They may not know. This could be a result of something else as well. Having said that, the wear and tear has increased, and that is what people are pointing out. That is more significant. Mileage drop, very clearly, people are highlighting. You see, as you rightly mentioned, Sachin, there are so many videos that are doing the rounds right now on the media. So many videos. One video also showed ants coming out of the fuel tank. That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. You speak to any expert, any serious expert, it's not like sugarcane juice has gone inside. Ethanol is different from sugarcane juice. So people are also, as you rightly mentioned, exaggerating. But yes, there is a problem. They do sense something unusual. And that is something for the government to see. To say that nothing is happening is also wrong. To exaggerate what is happening is also wrong. Let's now move to point number 4. Is there a surge in vehicle wear and tear complaints? And this is a month-on-month comparison. Sachin, would you like to explain this?
So again, the number was quite low, at 29% in the month of May, and this is where the biggest surprise for us has been that there's a very significant jump from 29 to 55%, which I think is partly led by the fact that people are becoming more and more aware that there has been a fuel change. Earlier it was E0 or E10, and now it is E20. And then, of course, therefore they are paying attention and saying, look, wait a minute, when I went to the mechanic last time, how much did I pay for my regular service, and how much am I paying this time? Was there a component change? Was there, a change in the filter or the, any other fuel component or a gasket, right? So I think that is what people are looking at when they are saying that, look, my maintenance cost has gone up, right? And I think, again, if this continues, this trend continues, we are going to see these numbers rising again when we do the survey next time. So I think something that the government must pay attention to as to, what is happening here, why is it happening? And, ultimately at the end of the day, people are looking for that, look, if there is a problem here, then I as a consumer need to have an option of E0 and E10. And if it looks like I'm comfortable with E20, it's not impacting my vehicle, I'm okay with that 5% mileage drop or whatever, I'm going to choose E20 because it's going to save me money. But the ones who have, certain cars or certain vehicles that are not compatible to E20, they are looking for that E0 or E10. And in many parts of the country, it is just not available now, because the nearest petrol pump could be 20, 25 kilometers away, depending on where you live, where E0 is still available.
I'll give you an example. In Delhi, there are hardly a few petrol stations, 2 or 3 maybe, that sell E0, which means pure 100% petrol. And the cost of that fuel is 162 rupees.
Yep.
100, and look at the premium. So are you expecting people who have vehicles older than 2023 to spend 160 rupees per liter? And this amount will vary from state to state. In Mumbai, it is 180 plus. I just wanted to ask you, Sachin, another thing. This survey that you have conducted of people who have seen an increase in the wear and tear and repair is a survey conducted on people who own pre-2023 vehicles that are non-E20 compliant, right? And now the standard fuel is E20.
That's right. Absolutely, Sanket. And it's a good mix of two-wheeler owners and four-wheeler owners. In fact, the ratio is 51% are four-wheeler owners and 49% are two-wheeler owners. And they all have vehicles that are 2022 or prior. They were made in 2022 or prior. So though we
Which
have
means
gotten some
E10.
complaints,
They were E10 compliant, not E20.
that's right. That's right. That's right. Though we have gotten some complaints lately in the last, I would say, 30 to 45 days about people having vehicles that were made in 2023, 24, 25, and 26, where they are reporting a mileage drop. So that's a separate issue that we are looking at. We haven't gotten anything conclusive as of yet, but there are concerns from those vehicle owners as well about a mileage drop. I think it's something that has to be looked in by the government. If there are these concerns, one, are they valid? Two, do enough people have them? And three, what is it that could be leading to something like a mileage drop in a vehicle that is E20 compliant, actually? So it's a separate issue altogether. But to answer your question, very much so, all pre-2023 vehicles saying that, look, we have a problem of mileage drop and we have a problem of increased wear and tear costs is what we are looking at right now.
Correct. And when you say pre-2023, the viewer must know that this can be automobiles ranging from a registration in 2023 to registration in 2014, right? When BS3 was there. Do remember that registration for petrol vehicles is done for 15 years. So even now, till 2029, any car which was, or any bike which was bought in the year 2014 will also be valid on the road right now. Legally, you can move around in that car. And that was not E20 compliant, quite obviously. Not even E10 compliant. They were, I think, E5 engines. Anyway, let's move on to point number 5, lab estimates versus real experience. So where is the disconnect? According to the LocalCircles report, the official claims are that ARAI estimate anticipated only a minor 1 to 6% dip in fuel efficiency. Government stand is that the program is scientifically validated. Mileage depends on multiple external factors, and on-road realities, as you can see very clearly, is that there are losses of up to 8 to 12% in your mileage. And LocalCircles survey says that 66% of the citizens track a loss of over 10% in their mileage. Just to explain what 10% means, if your mileage was 10 kilometers to a liter, now it is 8. Now you extrapolate this to your monthly bill and you will get an idea of how much fuel you are having to burn. Sachin, would you like to respond? I mean, what must happen post this survey?
Very clearly, Sanket, we have done, another survey, which is just basically to understand from people what should be the way forward. And, a massive, 8 in 10 essentially are saying that, look, make E0, E10 available to people. Whatever the price be, let them decide which one works best for them. This is something that is done world over in many, many countries. Let the choice be with the consumer. If they want, lower price, they'll go for E20, knowing, how much mileage it comes with, or how much mileage drop it comes with, how much wear and tear cost increase it comes with. Or they'll say, look, I'm going to take the bullet and I'm going to spend more on fuel, so I end up spending less on wear and tear costs, and therefore I'll pick E10. So I think it's the consumer who should have this choice. And it is something that should not be dictated or forced upon the consumer. I think that's the very, very, very simple ask that a lot of people have right now.
Yeah, otherwise, what people will end up doing is 55% of owners who have experienced an unusual increase in engine and fuel line wear and tear are directly going to blame it on ethanol. And you see, the biggest problem is that there is, how do you certify? How do you certify? I'm just thinking as a vehicle owner, how do I go to the government and say that this wear and tear is because of your fuel? The government will always turn around and say that no, there is no proof, nothing conclusive. Look at our reports, they say nothing. unless, of course, a mechanic or a company workshop is willing to give it in writing that what you're experiencing right now is a result of mixed fuel, there is no way one would get justice. The loop is not complete.
No, you're absolutely right, Sanket. And I think that is where we are seeing now a lot of mechanics, channels are going out and talking to them, especially YouTube channels, different journalists, they're going and talking to the vehicles. And what we are seeing is the same being reported. Mechanics basically are reporting that there's a problem here. And I think that is something the government should take clue from and look at basically doing a proper investigation to understand what is the real issue here. And then if they find an issue that yes, mileage drop is more than the 5%, 6% or whatever, then make the E0 and the E10 option available to the consumer. Well, one of the other issues, Sanket, frankly, here that I would like to add is, when such policies are implemented, I think it's extremely critical, when the consumer, budget and the household budget is going to get impacted, is that, broad, comprehensive consultations are done with people before bringing in these policies. And that is, consistently not happened with the road ministry, unfortunately. Vehicle scrappage policy is another, similar policy where there is a major issue, where you have vehicles that you want to scrap just based on the number of years. It makes no scientific sense. We've got, thousands of complaints from residents of, Delhi NCR, where you have vehicles, they live in South Delhi, their kids live abroad, they have a vehicle where they drive, 5 kilometers to the market, 40,000, kilometers on it, and it's a 15-year-old vehicle, and they're not ready to get rid of it. Right. So I think these policies should be made with more consultation, more people participating, rather than top down. And that's something that we would like to see going forward with the government, especially the road ministry.
Yeah, but that's a debate for another day, because there are just so many things to talk about. Since we focus specifically on ethanol, that's why we are talking about this survey. But viewers, by a rough estimate, there are about 36 crore vehicles in this country. That's the vehicular population of this country. Of course, there's no census, but by the number of cars and scooters that are registered, officially registered. So roughly 36 crores. A majority of them are two-wheelers. A whopping 30 crores are pre-2023. And that means that this new fuel was not meant for 30 crore vehicles in this country. Which is why, as Sachin is also mentioning, can the government end this entire debate by just giving one E10 nozzle per pump? And this whole debate will vanish. Whoever wants to reap the benefits of cheaper fuel will go for E20, E30 compliant cars. And then cannot blame the government for forcing a fuel down the throat of their cars. Sachin, thank you so much for this survey. We really look forward to the next one whenever it happens. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sanket. Pleasure being here.